Questions, discussions, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed, show it passes unanimously. Item number 3, general public comments. Do we have any general public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to action item number 4, Tampa Bay Regional Stormwater Control Contractor Selection. Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, good morning. This is one of the updated agenda items that was distributed earlier this week upon some of the recommendations that were developed at the last Friday's management board meeting. This project relates to a large restore grant that we received from DEP. We were originally awarded this grant back in December of 2022. We actually just received the contract September this year, and we're quickly went out for bid for some of this work. This will require engineering services procured through CCNA, and we advertised the RFP for this work from July 19th through September 25th. We held an evaluation committee on October 18th, outlining 3 responsive proposals that we received in response to that RFP. Namely, those tasks that each of the respondents were developing their proposals on were a surface water resource assessment, primarily in the Old Tampa Bay region, followed by a full 30, 60, 90, 100% design of prioritized projects, either from that assessment or from the larger watershed that would be considered for full implementation and construction upon approval of the Restore Council and then additional funds that would come to the program through that Restore Council grant. As I mentioned, the evaluation committee consisted actually of some members represented here as alternates to some of our member governments. Alex Awad from the city of Tampa, Carrie Flaherty-Walia from our program, David Spurg from the Hillsborough County, and Roger Johnson from the city of St. Petersburg. They scored the proposals based on standardized set of criteria that were specified in the RFP. And upon conclusion of the evaluation committee meeting, basically 2 respondents were tied for top ranked respondents in relation to this RFP request. Those were Jones Edmonds and Associates and Applied Sciences Consulting. Based on the further discussion in the evaluation committee, they requested that both those top ranked respondents provide presentations at last Friday's management board meeting. And we had a short Q&A session followed by the presentations of each of those respondents by the management board members. Upon conclusion and receiving the findings of the evaluation committee, presentations at the management board meeting, and the Q&A session, the management board developed a rank order for me to start negotiations under the CCNA procurement. And that is the updated agenda item as developed for your consideration at this policy board meeting. Basically, they recommended an order that aligned to the average score and average ranks that were developed by the evaluation committee, as well as in response to the presentations and Q&A that were held at last Friday's meeting. So that is up for your consideration today. Don would also like to add a couple of comments based on some additional information we received as of yesterday from the response.
Thank you. Late yesterday, Mr. Sherwood received a letter from a representative of one of the 2 firms under consideration. And that letter states that it's a protest of the recommendation being presented to you today. Now, I have to say, it doesn't qualify as a formal protest. It's a letter of correspondence in my view, but it doesn't trigger the protest process that's laid out in Chapter 120 of the Florida statutes. That process starts when there's a decision made by this body, and this body hasn't made a decision at this point. The only thing that's happened is there's been a recommendation presented by the management board to this body. If you were to make a decision today on either of these firms, that would start the protest opportunity for each of the firms. And the first step would be within 3 days, they have to file a notice of protest. And then within 7 additional days, they have to file a formal written protest. And there's very specific criteria that have to be followed to do that. If that were to occur, we have an obligation to provide an opportunity to the protesting firm to mediate the dispute. That has to occur within 7 days. We're not able to resolve matters through mediation. It then goes to an administrative law judge assigned by the Division of Administrative Hearings in Tallahassee to hold a formal hearing on the protest. Significantly, while this is proceeding, agencies are not allowed to proceed and award a contract. So a protest, a formal protest stops the award process. So while that is going on, we would stand down on any formal award until the protest procedure is concluded. The administrative law judge makes a decision, comes back to this body, and you take action at that point. As I say, the letter that we received, that Mr. Sherwood received, expresses some concerns on behalf of Allied Sciences with the process thus far. And in my view, it's premature to be considered a formal protest because this body hasn't made a decision. I do have a concern with regard to any action that might be taken today, separate and apart from the letter. The RFP that was issued calls for a decision to be made by the policy board. That's why we're here today. The policy board is comprised of 9 members. Today, we have 7 members present. 2 of the members are represented by alternates. We are very fortunate in this body to allow alternates to sit and to participate when a policy board member cannot participate. And we do have 2 alternates who are here today, sitting in for 2 of the member governments, 2 of the 7 member governments. The 2 alternates who are present, and again, this is no reflection on the alternates, but it's a fact that I wish to share with this body. The 2 alternates were members of the evaluation committee. They participated in the initial scoring of the proposals. There were also participants at the management, or at least one was participant at the management board. I don't know if Mr. Awad was, but Mr. Glickstein was participant in the management board meeting. Now, why do I raise that? The firms are entitled to an independent and final decision by this body, by the policy board. There is an appearance, perhaps, that could be taken by some that by having evaluation committee members participate in this process today, that we are not giving both firms an independent review and decision by the policy board members who are assigned to make that decision. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are. And I wanted this body to know that it does concern me as possibly raising another grounds for a protest, depending on what happens today, that in fact, participating in this decision were members who participated in the prior steps, that is the evaluation, and in one instance, also the management board action. Now that can be handled in a couple of ways. Those alternates could choose to recuse themselves. That would be up to them. I'm not recommending that, but that's an alternate approach. Of course, we understand that if that occurs, then that deprives those 2 member governments of a voice in today's decision. The other action that could be taken by this body is to defer action on this today, to allow for a reconvening of the body with a full membership of the policy board to decide and give an independent review and decision based on what the policy board hears at this meeting, at whatever subsequent meeting might be scheduled. So those are 2 alternates. A third alternative is to proceed today. And if we get a protest, we'll just have to deal with it as it occurs. But I wanted to make you aware of my recommendation would be to defer today until you have a full policy board participating without the involvement of evaluation committee members. But I'll turn it back over to Ed if he has a recommendation.
There are during roll call, so members. Just, I want to the.
Sure.
Here. Participation. The two that you mentioned.
Okay.
Who is the.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I appreciate you providing that guidance to the board. I think where I'm at in this process now is that we know there's very significant work that we're trying to achieve in the Old Tampa Bay segment. We're already a couple of years behind in terms of trying to get this work under contract. Depending on, who's selected, I would kind of expect a challenge either way to come, and that's something that we might have to deal with if we defer just another couple of months to February. So, given Don's counsel of his preference to defer, I wanted you all to hear that first. But I am prepared to move forward with any action of this policy board decides today in form of awarding this contract or not, or deferring. So I could also provide additional sort of observations on the overall respondent proposals. From my point of view, if that is the wishes of the policy board, I kind of deferring to that until you guys ask me for that consideration. But we also do have evaluation committee members here present to ask their opinions on the proposals as well.
Ms. Watkins?
I speak in favor of not deferring for several reasons. One, I doubt we ever will have full board with no substitutes. Whether I can come in February and somebody else might happen, especially in light of the updated attendance. Additionally, I am not so much concerned about evaluation members participating in the vote. I've been on several public boards over the last 30 years. And we will have search committees for CEOs or presidents, and people who are on the search committee will be members of those boards and eventually vote as a board member on the recommendation that they participated in. And as Mr. Sherwood said, if we delay this, we are just as likely as not perhaps to have a challenge at a later date. So I stand in favor of proceeding with the work that's already been delayed enough and dealing with something that is an uncertainty now. Let's go forward and make it a certainty. If it's going to be a challenge, we'll address it and deal with it at the administrative level. So I stand in favor of voting today.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I've been in situations like this before with bids coming in, they're tight, and two very good qualified firms, let's say, that come in and it's tight, and they've actually brought it before the board. And then even though it was like a recommendation coming from lower level, they brought both people in because it was so close, something like this. We had a full open discussion. Everybody got all the information. And I agree to your point. I don't care if you're an alternate or not. If you're here, you're here. If everybody hears the same presentation as the final decision making, I think it'd be harder for them to protest. I think it's something we should have a special meeting if need be and do this as quick as possible. It's a better way to do it. It's open government to go do it, and then let everybody hear it, and then you make a decision. And then once that's made, and whatever the board decides, then we go from there. But right now, you're gonna get a challenge anyway. I think it slows you up even more. This is the cleanest way to do it, the most transparent way to do it.
Yes, sir.
I don't disagree with the two former comments. My thing is perception is reality. So if you have two alternates that were on a board, it does muddy the waters a little bit. So I appreciate council's advice on what the potentials going forward could be. My question is, you pointed out abstaining with the members that were on the committee. Since we now know we have other voting members online, be willing to abstain and then allow a vote to go forward that way, therefore clearing up and not prohibiting a delay to another meeting. That's a potential option that I see as rectifying this all.
Councilman?
Could you clarify what the participation and voting procedures for the members that are here virtually are?
The members who are here virtually have heard this discussion. If they have comments, Maya will, I'm sure, inform us that they've raised their hand and they want to participate, but they will be able to vote just like the members who are here. Absolutely.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
I think in the end, there may be a protest. If they voted today and we recused ourselves, there will be a vote. Something will happen and the protest will move forward would delay the project anyway. So I kind of tend to agree with Mr. Mariano that maybe we should have the two firms come in and we won't be on the board at that time, and it would be somebody else, and or Mrs. Hurtak would be here. And then she can decide on, or whoever, but then at least you'll have a board that will decide on the project, but I don't know that a protest is not gonna happen. I don't know.
Ms. Watkins?
The whole point of having an evaluation committee is to bring a recommendation to this board. Just because one person or one firm doesn't like the outcome, if we're going to cave to that every time and say we're going to disregard the recommendation of these evaluation committee and start anew with them presenting to this board, we may as well skip the evaluation committee step if we're going to, succumb to that every time. And we also don't, there's no protest been filed. While we suspect there may be one, there may not be one. And there's nothing to say that after the presentations are made, there's not still a protest. So I think we need a triggering event to bring this to closure, and that would be a vote of this board. Is there any issue with any member abstaining? Does it have to be reported to the governor's office?
May I ask, may I have, here, I'll raise my hand. Jason Bearden out of Manatee County.
Ms. Watkins, were you done?
Can you hear me?
Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, you may go.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, so, here's the deal. I'm thinking of this. Let's just say it so happens where there is a protest and it goes to a legal battle. Are we willing to essentially cost more money to the taxpayers because we don't, we're about to swear in our new commissioners on Tuesday. So, and these boards would be, redesignated. And I would like to see them actually have some sort of input, knowing the fact that they're going to most likely be on this board for the next 2 years in regards to this particular item. Are we going to be looking at any type of suit at, whatever type of vote that does happen today that will cost our taxpayers maybe a significant amount of money?
Anyone can sue over anything, any day, anytime, anywhere. I'll just weigh in. We had a letter of intended protest before they knew who was going to be sitting here this morning, before the alternates voted or didn't vote. So I didn't hear any reason for the protest. I think you have a firm that finishes second that files a protest or notice that they're going to think about maybe protesting. And it changes our action. I think I think it's a bad signal for, the process. I agree with Ms. Watkins. We're here today. If someone makes a motion, we'll vote. And let the chips fall where they may. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Could I ask a
Sure.
clarification? This is to approve going forward. What is,
This is to approve the action recommended, approve the following order to begin negotiations, authorize the executive director to negotiate the scope, and authorize the executive director to amend the scope, the 3 items in the action item.
Chairman?
thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, and I think it's still more discussion, but anyway, I want to carry on my discussion a little further. As far as the alternates go, and again, they've heard the presentation already. If the member wants the alternate to be on the vote, no matter what the situation is, that should prevail, whether alternate or not, they're given the standing, they should have the same presence as a member, period. So that is, I don't know what's even part of the conversation, frankly. That's why we have the alternates, just because if you can't make it, you put a person in trust that you trust to make the right decision. Secondly, let me ask you this, how many times do you get a pre-protest letter from anything that's ever come before you? How many times have you ever seen that?
This agency in the past 12 years has only had one protest.
Okay.
And so it's very infrequent that we have a protest.
Okay. So if you have a firm out of 3 and you get 2 of them ranked, would the average ranking score exactly the same? Now, I don't know what went on in the presentations, but I'd like to see it. as a member. And frankly, for someone who pushed for this project to come forward, to get this money, to go work on the stormwater quality all around the coast as well as the bay, working with the Regional Planning Council, I want to know who's going to do what work where, and I want to see the whole presentation myself. So in this regard to this whole thing, I feel strongly that we should just do what my commission's done before. We had tight races like this, tight situations. Let the board who's going to make the final decision, not just be a rubber stamper, but make a decision based upon what they know. And I think I need more information before I can support this.
Councilman?
Yeah, if I may, I also agree with you. Anybody can sue at any time over anything for any reason. And just because if this does get approved or if we defer it, you can still get sued later on down the line. And this is nothing against you or the members that were on the committee. But maybe this board should think going forward that if their alternates are here, they probably shouldn't be on committees that are making decisions. Therefore, setting up this potential precedence going forward that puts us in this bind.
Fair enough.
Because the problem is that it opens you up for the potential of a favorable outcome towards one company or another. So.
Yes, sir.
Only point of information I want to offer. So the presentations were during the management board meeting that was fully recorded, including the Q&A session. So that is available, but if additional presentations are requested by this board, we can make that happen, probably through a special meeting.
Commissioner?
I want to do a Q&A as I hear a presentation, not just listen to some that maybe didn't get asked, whatever. The information may be there, but I want to hear the full presentation of the top two firms here. I think it's a very reasonable thing, and I think this escapes a lot of trouble.
All right. We had a motion. I haven't heard a second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Wishes of the board.
To defer to a presentation with both firms, the top two firms listed.
Hearing no second, motion dies for lack of a second. Wishes of the board.
I'll move to defer without a presentation. We can go back and look at what's been done. And I don't know if this needs to be included in the motion, but you mentioned a special meeting so that we could get to this quicker. I don't know.
Yeah, we'd have to provide notice. It would have to be in person of members of the policy board. And if there were presentations requested at that special meeting, we'd have to make arrangements with each of the respondents on a date. But we'd try to do that and notice it probably between now and the end of the calendar year. So that would be sort of the timing.
Would you prefer that?
I kind of told you what my preference was. I expect, based on the outcomes of that meeting, there's going to be a respondent that is ranked second, and there will probably be a challenge either way, depending on if the order changes based on those presentations or not.
Okay. At this point, I don't know if a deferral is anything. I don't know if there's any other path forward. The one thing that brings me concern is that we have our legal counsel here giving advice. I respect what y'all are saying completely, but I want to follow the legal counsel's advice.
So let me clarify. I laid out options for you. All of those options provide a legal path forward.
Okay.
I'm not concerned about any illegality if you take any of those paths. I was just trying to be sure you were fully informed
Okay.
about the factual matters concerning where we are today.
Could you relay out briefly summarize the paths forward you?
Sure. First is to defer action today for whatever reason. I mean, we've heard several reasons expressed so that this board, the final decision-making board, can have the benefit of the presentations. That's the first option, defer action today. The second is to proceed with action today based on the recommendation that's come forward, recognizing that we may get a protest, and we'll deal with the protest when it occurs. But those are basically the two options as I see it.
Okay. And now we've had two motions fail for a lack of a second. Those can't be revisited or?
Well, can I ask a question really quick to the attorney, please?
Following this is, yes, because there's been discussion,
Mhm.
those motions could be placed back on the
Okay,
table.
that's clear for me. All right, well, I'll let other people mention things. I'll hold off on my comment.
All right, thank you. Who, I hear someone online?
Yeah, that was Commissioner Bearden. I just had a quick question to the attorney. What puts us in the best position?
Very straightforward.
Yeah, what puts us in the best position in regards to either or?
In my judgment, if you were to defer today and invite presentations, I think that is the soundest position going forward. I think that avoids a possible additional grounds for protest, which is the participation of members of the evaluation committee in this decision.
I'll make that motion again.
I'll second it.
So what is a,
To defer, to get presentations.
so we have a motion from the commissioner, we have a second from the councilman. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
So it passes whatever to one.
Could I ask, would you like for there to be a special meeting to get to this quicker?
That would be my preference instead of waiting till February, if we can make it work.
Okay.
Everyone's calendar.
I'm happy.
Good luck, Maya. I haven't, in 12 years, I haven't seen every policy board actually member here at any meeting without an alternate or full attendance in 12 years, but Godspeed. All right, item number 5, quarterly financial reports and final 2024 program-wide budget. Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, on page 10 of the packet is an updated table outlining our fiscal year 2024 Q4 final report, as well as what will be adopted as our final fiscal year 2024 program-wide budget. Overall, based on what we anticipated during our mid-year budget amendment that occurred this past May, we're fairly close in terms of total revenues. And we actually saw a little bit more in terms of total revenues compared to what we were anticipating at the mid-year budget amendment. That is largely from some additional interest income that we've been able to garner from the new accounts that we've set up for some of our funds. There are a couple other footnotes I just wanted to call your attention to. We are a little bit under in terms of in-kind revenues, and that's kind of to be expected based on the pace of completion of projects. Those in-kind revenues anticipated from those partner projects that match to our federal funds just roll over into the next year. We actually recognize them both as revenue and expense, and that's what that first footnote represents. On the expense side, our volunteer services were a little bit over in what we anticipated at the mid-year budget amendment to the tune of about $3,000 over what we anticipated. That was from additional T-shirts that we purchased for sponsoring the Great Scalp Search in August in partnership with Tampa Bay Watch, as well as some programming that we did during National X-Rays Week in September. These are grant funds that we do have available to us. It just was not included in terms of that mid-year budget amendment that I presented at the last May board's meeting. And the last but not least, on the tech and comms contracts and consultant services, we were anticipating about 1.9 million in total activity for the fiscal year. We came in at a little bit under 1.6. So those funds that we did not realize this year, again, would just roll it into the next fiscal year as we realize them and the projects are completed. But again, these are funds that are available to us. We have multi-year grants that span multiple fiscal years. And this is, in comparison to our budget estimates that we've presented to you in the past, either at the mid-year, this past May, or even earlier on August of the preceding year. So in total, we saw about a little bit over 3 million in total revenue experience. And in terms of expenditures, a little bit over the same amount, about 3,074,000. Again, this will be the basis for our financial audit for fiscal year 2024. Once approved, this will be forwarded on to our auditors, and that'll begin the process of them going through our books for the prior fiscal year and bringing back that report to the boards at the February board meeting. So we'll also be conducting an audit during these other activities that we just passed. Any questions or comments?
Amazing how tight the numbers are. Well done.
there a motion to accept or approve?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously. Item number 6, election of policy board chair, vice chair. We have nominations, self or otherwise, to be chair of the policy board. Commissioner,
Are you still gonna stay on the board?
Nope.
What I heard, I'm very sad to hear that.
as soon as this is over, I start drinking, so.
Where we at?
Somebody expressed concern about the changes in the board. They're swearing in their new commission members next Tuesday. They were concerned about approving a contract because it's changing the constitution of this board. I would be more concerned about the leadership of this board chair and vice chair for 2 years when the constitution changes next week. Why is the vote now and not next meeting?
Mr. Justice is leaving the.
No, her suggestion is that we would wait to have an election for chair and vice chair until a new board is set in February. So you don't have a chair and vice chair until February. That's certainly the action of this board, can do whatever it want.
I
You'd have 2
understand
brand
you're
new
leaving
members.
the commission. Who's the vice chair?
And we contemplated doing at that time. See, so at that meeting, and so this defer.
So it's not normal that we.
This is not normal, but it's also, you also have at least a few people, not many, but you have a few people who've been here for a little bit. Everyone else would be brand new, whether you want to put them as chair or vice chair of the board, that's certainly, again,
Vice chair is vacant right now.
both are vacant. Yep, about an hour. This is a rudderless ship.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that information.
They overstate my importance of the day. Yes, sir.
I'm comfortable at least getting a chair for now, and letting the other one roll. I'm nominating Ryan Cotton for chair. If he wants it.
So I am new as well. I don't think that would probably be the right position for me yet, just getting my feet wet. I've been on one meeting virtually, and this is my first time in person, so don't know if I'm that right fit yet.
Right.
Thank you, though.
No.
Further discussion,
I'm,
Councilman.
yes, you looked like you had something you wanted to say, but I think that might have gotten cleared up.
I just wanted to say that if, as a result of your prior action, you're gonna hold a special board meeting, you could make this part of that special board meeting, that is election of officers at that meeting. In fact, I think you'd have to do that because you need a chair and a vice chair for that meeting.
We would have to do it during that meeting or would do it now for
You
that?
could do it either way. You could do it now.
You certainly have, this would give notice to current members and incoming members that there's an opportunity for service and leadership. And people could make known to staff their desire. And hopefully you would show up at the beginning of that meeting with, in fact, I would appoint Commissioner in my last duty, I would appoint Commissioner Mariano to chair that special meeting that he desired for the presentations. So he can chair that meeting and the first action could be to elect a chair and vice chair. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
I do have a question for you all. When do most of your boards make appointments?
Not till.
January.
Yeah.
January 1.
So our goal is to try. We would have this interim. How would we be holding things with?
That's right.
It's not gonna make it.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, also,
Is it
There-
common
there's-
practice for your municipalities or counties to not continue with the same board that you were on before? Do you swap that out or?
I
Many
think
of them change.
Yeah, depends on the municipality.
it's
Nobody
Uh,
here is willing to be chair.
you're, I think, my 5th Clearwater, 4th Tampa, 12th St. Pete.
Yeah.
I anticipate.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
so
sir.
if somebody wants to nominate me, I would accept it.
I will be happy to nominate.
I plan to be here for, my board is not gonna change the position either, so
I think
I'm happy to, I just didn't want to overstep to
I would be happy to nominate you and appreciate bring your experience coming in as chair,
I will second
because
it.
I'm with him.
All right, we have a motion, a second, further discussion? All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Show it pass unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations.
All right. Item number 7, legislative priorities.
Do we
I'm
want to take
sorry.
any action on
Holding
vice
vice chair.
chair?
Thoughts? You want to hold vice chair vacant until we see the makeup of the board? Or do you want to, does that sound,
I
Mr.
think-
Chairman,
I
is
think
that?
it's
Does that sound action, like everybody nod consensus?
Got a lot going on. I appreciate that.
I'm hearing nothing, so that sounds like consensus is that we'll wait for vice chair.
Well, I mean, were we gonna wait till next meeting or I didn't hear exactly like a special?
How about
A special
February?
meeting.
The special meeting will be the same board members though, is what we were just getting at.
Yeah, if we wait till February,
Right.
the commissions and councils will have their new assignments.
Yeah, is that
That's fine.
the intent? I will say, like, I would be happy to serve as vice chair. I've been here for a while as
I'll
well.
nominate Mr. Floyd.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Okay, there we go.
Motion and a second. Any objection? Any objection? Show it passes unanimously.
All right.
All right,
Can I get clarification on who made the motion and who made the second?
I mean, I'll.
Commissioner Mariano,
Thank you.
Ms. Watkins. Item number 7, legislative priorities.
This on page 12 of your packets is outline of what our talking points as we go to our state and federally elected officials over the course of the next fiscal year, 2025. This is something I typically bring to the boards every November, just to keep it fresh in your minds on for the needs that we've identified as an ESHRE program and are hopefully supporting the activities of each of our partners represented in this room today. So many of the talking points are similar to what we've presented in prior fiscal years as our legislative priorities, but I do want to call out a couple of differences. This year, we're actually trying to support the expansion and ongoing operation and maintenance of the Tampa Bay Observing Network, currently hosted by the University of South Florida. There's 5 real-time stations that they've established in Tampa Bay, going on a little bit over, I think, a year to 2 years, depending on the station. This is the first of its kind real-time water quality monitoring network that has been established in Tampa Bay, related to parameters that are of interest to us and would report on a more frequent basis than our typical ambient monitoring programs that are sampling basically a monthly snapshot amongst our county government. So this will fill in a lot of information gaps, as we know, as it relates to nutrient pollution in Tampa Bay. We're actually receiving some funds from DEP through a settlement agreement to support an additional station in Bishop Harbor to establish a new station there for real-time water quality monitoring. But there's still an ongoing need by USF to maintain this observation network into the future. They're currently putting together an application to EPA to primarily support a lot of their ongoing operations and maintenance. So there's still the significant need and gap of funding to support that monitoring. We're one of the largest estuaries in the state of Florida. We're actually behind the 8 ball in terms of other areas in the state where some of these real-time water quality monitoring networks have already been established. So this will put us on par with others areas of the states where these investments have already been made. So that's one of our key priorities this year that we'll want to advance and talk to our state and federally elected officials on supporting into the future. Other than that, we also want to hear from each of our partner governments, particularly in response to some of the hurricanes that we've all experienced in our communities. We had both Debbie, Helene, and Milton caused significant flooding impacts to our region and also identified some fairly significant vulnerabilities as it relates to our stormwater and wastewater infrastructure in the region. If there are key projects that you have funding shortfalls for, I want to receive that information from each of your organizations so that we can add a voice in terms of those needs to both our state and federally elected officials. We recognize this is something that is not going to be fixed overnight, and there's going to be large investments that are needed within our region to address these sort of chronic issues that we've been facing and some of the new ones presented in the wake of these storms. So if you wanted to forward those ideas to me directly, I'd be happy to receive them and again, use those as talking points as I meet with both state and federally elected officials in the near future. Last but not least, just wanted to point out, as a national estuary program, we are one of 28 organizations administered through EPA. As a federal program, we actually come up for reauthorization about every 5 years. Our authorization through Congress will run out during fiscal year 2026. So over the next year, that is another significant priority as we meet primarily with our federally elected officials to reauthorize the national estuary programs. It gives Congress a little bit more credence to appropriate funds to authorize programs throughout the nation. And this is a critical point for us in terms of the program and ensuring that those continued investments in the national estuary programs are maintained in the future. So as I meet with our federally elected officials, that'll be another top priority for us to mention. And then last but not least, on the federal side, we are, as has been approved and recommended through this board, working with several agencies, primarily Hillsborough County, to move forward with the seeking the designation of the Little Manatee River as a wild and scenic river. That's another high priority for us. They're going through a study phase now that will provide a report back to Congress on whether or not that designation should be fully implemented through Congress. And that work is just basically kicking off now. They actually had a virtual meeting yesterday and another in-person meeting in December. We have a lot of great information on why the Little Manatee River is a special place, and we think should be designated as a wild and scenic river and recognized nationally as such. So we want to just ensure that our federally elected officials are aware of that, as well as a priority of our program as the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. With that, I'll stop and address any questions you might have on those legislative priorities. If there are additional suggestions for talking points that you would like me to forward on to our state and federally elected officials, I could hear them now or receive them after the meeting as well.
Yes, sir.
I had a couple of thoughts, especially with Hurricane Helene that just came in and just like buried everything. I don't care what you did for stormwater, you weren't stopping that thing, it was coming. But to minimize effects for other storms maybe coming in, one of the things when we had Regional Planning Council setting up the coalition for the resiliency was I wanted to make sure we did some construction things that were going to be looked at. Like Miami-Dade, they raised up their seawall available heights to 5 or 6 feet. I think we're at a level we're thinking like 3 feet. Something I'm doing locally in my county is I'm trying to allow as much impervious surface as we can around the canals, where all the water is going to go, where someone's lawn may be right there along the canal. Because let's face it, between pesticides along the canals that get into the Gulf, someone sprays a lawn, you can cut it one way on the edge, the other way it's going to blow over. If the wind blows, the loose stuff that gets into the thing, into the bay, it's going to create more nutrients. When I was overseas over in Switzerland, they had Lake Geneva. Around the whole thing, there was nothing for vegetation. Even coming down the mountains, it just like rolled on down, very little pesticides around. Lake Geneva's water quality all the way year round. You can drink it, swim in it, whatever, and there's boats in it, et cetera. So I think a key is going to be allowing people with properties, even businesses, to be able to keep all the impervious, not have to have grass, and allow. We have restrictions on how much lot coverage you can have for grass. So we're looking to change that, and I think it's going to happen. But that maybe, if that's something you can do or take a look at, if there's an opportunity to get legislative help, might be a good thing to look at.
I think. Can I respond? I think certainly in the wake of some of the storms, when we see 12 to 16 plus inches of rainfall over 24 to 48 hour periods of time, the way we currently manage stormwaters is going to be different in the future. If that is the new norm, if we're receiving that amount of rainfall every couple of years instead of every 50 or 70 years, how we manage that rainfall in the watershed is built into some of the stormwater RFP contractor selection process that we just discussed. So again, I think it's recognizing that things in the past are not going to be consistent in the future, and that we have to, plan for that and construct probably projects differently. It's in some places, it's probably going to be a mixture of both gray and green infrastructure to accommodate our new rainfall conditions that we're going to experience in the future. It's probably not going to be one type of typical flood protection project that we've seen in the past. It's going to be thinking outside of the box and planning accordingly.
Other thoughts, questions?
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, show it passes unanimously. Item number 8, legal services contractor, Mr. Sherwood.
Yeah, so our longtime legal counsel, Don Khan, is be retiring at the end of November. We definitely appreciated Don's sound legal counsel throughout the years, as well as in today's meeting. We're leaving here with, you know, with a very providing that sound good guidance when we needed it most. And his services are going to be sorely missed. We do actually have a gift that we wanted to provide to Don for his going on now. Adding up, it was since 2007 before I started with the program to now. So he's been with the program for over 17 years, and we want to offer this as a token of appreciation for Don and all of his services to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
With all the,
It has been a real privilege and an honor to serve this body since 2007, 2008. Time flies when you're having fun. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
with all that,
Yes, sir.
John, I want to thank you for all your service. From being elected in 2004, I've seen a lot of the great work you've done, and you've always been a very smart man, always given us great guidance and very calmly, but laying out for the board what they can do and go. And I've never had you make a bad decision for us to lead us in any item, whatever it is. So
I'm not
thank
sure
you.
my wife would agree with that.
That's okay.
yeah, so with all that being said, that leaves us with another vacancy for legal services for the program that we need to make a decision on today. At the last board meeting, it was the preference of the policy board to actually solicit additional letters of interest for those services. We actually put that solicitation out on the street from August 19th through September 20th. We received one letter in response from Gray Robinson and Jan McLean, who's here today, as potential consideration for our legal services moving forward. With Don's help and our staff, we've been negotiating a draft agreement with Gray Robinson that is presented in the policy board packet for your consideration today. But it is my recommendation to move forward with that draft agreement that would authorize us to enter into a new service contract with Gray Robinson for the period of December 1st of this year through December 30th, 2026. And then at subsequent periods in time in the future to authorize, we amend that contract for 3 additional years for a total of about a 5-year contract with that new service provider. I think Don has provided yeoman service at a very reasonable rate to the program for many years now. Gray Robinson has also provided a very competitive rate compared to other legal contractors within the region. And that is the basis for my recommendation today to move forward with them. We have to entertain any questions that you have. And as I mentioned, Jan McLean is here if you wish to have any dialogue with Jan as well.
Questions, discussions, or motions?
Move rule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show it passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
with regard to that item? I've known Jan for probably 20 years. And I have not always been on the same side of the issue with Jan, but she is a professional. She's very, very knowledgeable when it comes to administrative law, which is the main focus of the legal counsel's job here. She is very, very competent and well-trained in that area. Jan called me yesterday, and I wanted to make this board aware that one of the competitors in the procurement that you have just dealt with earlier is a client of Gray Robinson. And that presents conflict for Jan. And so, and it's for the firm. In view of the fact that you've decided to have another board meeting on this issue, I would be happy to continue just for the limited purpose of representing the program at that board meeting, because Great Robinson would not feel comfortable participating in that meeting. They represent, as I say, one of the other competing firms. Now, if there's a protest, of course, there would have to be another firm that would be selected by this group to handle that protest. But I would be happy to step in and just participate and counsel during your special board meeting when it's scheduled, but just for that limited purpose, if that's authorized by the policy board.
I love that idea. I think it's great. We work out the term.
That would have to probably come in the form of an additional motion.
Yeah,
To
just
Motion.
Commissioner Mariano, you want to form that in a motion?
Not sure exactly how we should say it, so I'll say we'll allow Mr. Khan to represent us through this item coming up.
Special board meeting.
Special board meeting. Yeah.
second.
Motion second, further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show passes unanimously. Councilmember, I'm sorry, did you have a?
I was just gonna ask, yeah, do we need to work out like legal terms for this?
Under the same terms that have existed under my current contract.
That sounds good.
sound like we would just amend the contract through the special meeting.
All right, thank you, sir.
you.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Item number 9, Bay Mini Grants. Who's handling that?
This is another updated agenda item. As we typically do at this November board meeting, we also bring forward the board's consideration approval of a number of Bay Mini grants that have been developed by the community and recommended through our CAC through an evaluation process that we conduct every year. Just to provide some additional context and information, the Bay Mini Grant Program is fully funded through the sales of our specialty license plate, the tarpon tag in the region. Lately, with those current sales, we have anywhere from about $90,000 to about $100,000 available on a per year basis to work to these community-based projects. And at this year's solicitation, it's received about 32 proposals to the tune of a little bit over 143,000 in total funding requested from those 32 respondents. Through an evaluation committee that was held on October 30th, we basically shortlisted down to the table that was presented in the updated agenda item to about 22 projects recommended for funding that span a variety of different organizations throughout the watershed. Those 22 projects equate to a little bit under about $100,000 in total funding. So we will have to dip into our reserves a little bit based on what we anticipate as revenues from the sales of the license plate over the course of this next year. But that is my recommendation to move forward with those 22 projects that were shortlisted by the CAC and are up for your consideration in that table 1 of the updated agenda item 9. Happy to answer any questions about any one of those particular projects as best I can, but they're also individually linked within the table within the digital agenda item.
Questions, discussions, or motion?
Approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it passes unanimously. All right. Item number 10, Director of Staff Reports, Mr. Sherwood.
So we got through all the action items today, and we'll have some special meetings in consideration of one. But thank you all for moving through those and being here to act on those. The remainder of the agenda is just kind of giving some board updates, and I'll briefly mention that with the passage of our fiscal year 2024 Q4 financial report, again, that goes to our auditor. And over the course of this next quarter, they will audit our books for the period October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, and bring that back to the board at the February board meeting for your guys' consideration and acceptance. Their full schedule is also linked in the executive director report. Last year, they actually gave a presentation, but that presentation is pretty similar with their anticipated timelines. We're anticipating initiating that we're pretty much after the Thanksgiving holiday, and then moving full speed ahead through the course of December and January. The other thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, sort of a new event that we're developing and will hold in early 2025 is a hackathon. This is basically a coding event. This to develop some coding for needed indicators of bay health conditions that we'll be soliciting input from community members that have those coding skills. So this is white hat hacking system for the good of the bay and developing products that we can relate to y'all of existing data that we have not yet developed syntheses or indicators that elicit and relay the condition of Tampa Bay. Through that hackathon event, I'll probably identify some potential folks that we would want to work with and place into consideration for additional contract work after we fully advertise that. It's sort of a unique event and it's first of a kind that we're doing, and it'll be at the Tampa River Center in late January. We talked a little bit about Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Through the course of after those events, we've been working with the University of Florida on actually some additional water quality monitoring in the face of those events. Actually collected some additional grab samples to understand bacteriological as well as bay-wide water quality conditions, just get an understanding of the bay's response to those events and how quickly it is recovering. Some actual good news from some of that sampling is that the bacteriological levels in the bay were actually a little bit lower than what we were anticipating after Milton. There's certainly some ongoing concerns that we have with red tide along the coast that we're keeping an eye on. I know there's been some notices actually throughout this week as well that those higher levels of red tide are approaching some of our beaches, and there's some citizen notifications that are being relayed by the state agencies now. So we'll continue to monitor that and report back those conditions as they rise. And you know, one of the biggest concerns for us is if we do see another red tide event come into the bay and affect our water quality as it relates to chlorophyll, which is a proxy for algal abundance in Tampa Bay. We measure that and report on that on a yearly basis. And that becomes the basis for some of the major decisions we make in response to any ongoing water quality issues that each of our bay segments are observed to occur. Last but not least, yep, sorry.
Talk about that for a second. So tell me, they were lower than what you expected. How do you compare it to what was going on before the storm to after the storm?
We actually saw some fairly high and significant bacteriological levels in, I think, August, before some of the, I think it was right after Debbie, but before Helene and Milton. The levels are still above sort of guidance levels, even after Milton, but they're a lot lower than those August conditions, which is somewhat positive, but we kind of expected that sort of response of the bay. It's just a matter of how quickly the bay recovers from that huge slug of water that went in. And that's what we're monitoring now. A lot of the analyses that are being collected aren't fully processed through the labs. So that information is coming in as we speak, week to week.
So I think up in Zephyr Hills area, they've had rains all summer long. They've been saturated. I mean, literally, if you go there, you got to go different ways every time because you're going to be cut off with waters all over the streets. And I know we're going to work with the Army Corps to try to work a way to try to channel that water and get it to a better spot. I was thinking with all the water flow that was going in, it might be a good thing for the bay in a sense, depending on all the other stuff around it. I know a lot of stuff was blown into the water. There may be a lot of debris in the water. And if it's something we should maybe take a look at, like maybe some federal grants with NOAA, et cetera, to get the stuff out of there, it may be something worthwhile looking at. But I'm going to float one other thing out to you. It's kind of out of this room, but it's good, important to think about. You've got Tampa Bay Water coming before the board, the next board meeting with Pasco County Commission to actually open up another well up in Dade City. And the people in Dade City, from what I hear from before, aren't going to be happy about it. So I asked for a public meeting that's going to happen. Water, you know, to just pump it out down to the aquifer, it kind of, to me, it's a dangerous thing. Some of the other things that are going on scare me too. But I'm thinking maybe down the road, we should be looking closely at like pumping all that stormwater stuff, get a pipe system, run it up to Crossbar Ranch, where a lot of water comes from for the bay. And that may be a better way to go than just kind of like let things go and where they go open up another well. So just information.
Yeah. And yeah, just in response, I think, alternative water supplies are a big question for our region moving forward. And some of the work that we're talking about that's needed in Old Tampa Bay, that has actually been on the table and being considered through additional projects that we're working on, where the Old Tampa Bay Civil Capacity Assessment work. Using Lake Tarpon outfall canal water for those purposes is a great way to reduce the amount of nutrient load going into Old Tampa Bay, where we have significant water quality problems. So that's being explored with our current contract with that work. But these other ideas are certainly something our region has to grapple with and think about in the future.
That's a great point, but so I know they wanted to try to like work on less brackish water to go treat it, to make it better, and maybe that's a real good thing. I didn't think of that point of it, so I appreciate that thought.
Yeah, I think that is currently being considered now and out for a feasibility study by Tampa Bay Water as well.
Okay, thank you.
And just to your notes about marine debris, we've been as staff trying to work with each of your staff to identify opportunities where additional cleanup is needed. We actually have hosted a couple events at some of the park systems where additional debris cleanup was needed. And we organized our volunteers to get out there and help out with that cleanup effort. Now at Boyd Hill, E.G. Simmons, we had Robinson Preserve last week, and want to continue to work with your organizations to identify there's other areas. I know we've been talking with Keith as well about opportunities in Pasco, as well as the additional opportunities in Manatee County. I think the next one is going to be up by
On Chestnut, what's the next one?
Lake Tarpon.
The date yet?
So recognize that this is going to be an ongoing recovery effort, and we want to offer our assistance through our volunteer network to help out with each of your partner organizations moving forward as well. Last item under my executive director report, just want to mention that to my staff, Dr. Blake Simmons and Carrie Flaherty Walia, actually we were successful in receiving a Gulf Ecosystems Initiative grant. They're going to be working with a large cohort to develop and tie key restoration activities to fisheries production throughout the state of Florida. So this is a large working group that they're forming, and they'll look at the data information that is in hand and create some recommendations for future restoration activities based on the outcomes as it primarily relates to improving the abundance of both recreationally and commercially important fishery species in the state of Florida. So we always encourage our staff to pursue grants and these opportunities to bring in resources and expand our partnership. And this is just highlighting that work of my staff, giving them kudos at this meeting. And last but not least, again, I wanted to recognize Commissioner Charlie Justice for his long service to the Tampa Bay Estuary Program Policy Board. Mr. Justice actually started with our program when he was first elected back in February. You were elected in 2012, but joined our board in 2013. Not long after that, you rose to the ranks of vice chair in February of 2015, and then assumed the chair responsibility in February of 2017. So we also do have a gift for your consideration, and also have a proclamation that I wanted to present to you as a champion of Tampa Bay. So we do this for most longtime members of the estuary program, just in recognition of their services, and really wanted to express our appreciation for everything that Charlie has provided to our program over the years. So we do have this proclamation, and I'll read it if you would like me to. So, whereas Charlie Justice has been a tireless public servant and advocate for the Tampa Bay region since at least 2000, when he was elected to the Florida House of Representatives. And whereas Charlie Justice joined the Tampa Bay Estuary Program's Policy Board in February 2013, Sue became the vice chair on February 20th, 2015, and has served as a policy board chair since February 17th, 2017. And whereas Charlie Justice oversaw the award of over $928,000 worth of funding to 218 Bay Mini Grant recipients since 2013, representing a diversity of community-based organizations focused on protecting and restoring Tampa Bay. And whereas the community's appreciation and enjoyment of Tampa Bay and the broader Gulf Coast has greatly benefited from Charlie Justice's involvement with the Gulf Consortium in the wake of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, as well as his participation and focuses on addressing other Tampa Bay environmental issues through the Agency on Bay Management and the Pinellas Wastewater Stormwater Partnership. And whereas Charlie's passion and commitment to protecting nature and wild Florida has left a lasting impression on all that know him, we are now therefore proclaiming him a champion of Tampa Bay. So thank you very much for your.
Thank you very much. I think Steve Cornell was the chairman and my first St. Pete City Councilman that I worked with. And I think we, like I said, we worked through 6, 7, 8, 9 St. Pete City Council members during my time. But I've enjoyed, this has been my favorite one. This is, as the commissioners know, when you go and you ask for your committee assignments, my other committees have changed over my 12 years, but this is the one that I've said, don't touch it. Every chairman that's come in, I said, don't touch that one. So I remain committed to the mission, and I just want to say thank you to the staff. Ed, it's been a pleasure to watch you grow in leadership and become executive director, and really the respect everyone has for you, and your staff loves you and appreciates you. And so
Most days.
most days. No, I tell you, they go to the wall for you. They pull me aside and tell me, but thank you to you and to the staff and to the board. Appreciate the time I've had on this board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just want to say, Charlie, it's always great serving with you, whether we're FAC or whatever the case may be, consortium. You're a great leader. You're a great person. Your passion is great, and we're going to miss you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Anything else for the good of the order?
We have one more staff update.
More staff update. All right.
In and raffle. Day, November 20th, it'll be a raffle. 6 p.m. at Green Bench Room. Anyone is invited. If you did register, you get raffle tickets. You can purchase raffle tickets. Hammock, fishing jackets, fishing gear, stuff. So if you're
Thank you very much.
That's all for staff updates.
Anything else for the good of the order?
One last agenda item on additional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, just as a reminder, we go into detail about each of the individual projects here at the meetings. If you have any questions, things with you, please feel free to send me an email and we can arrange time to do that. We know we'll be having
Now we're,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
It is Valentine's Day.
Friday, February 14th.
All right. We are adjourned.
I'm done with each other.
very nice.
Congratulations to you too. You're retired as well, but I can't say that anymore whenever, now
You're hitting that.
I can- Congratulations.
There were chairs and everything.
Sure should be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate
I
it.
don't, I gotta continue to do it.
Yeah.
My point.
We'll change the world soon enough.
Thank you.